Hello, everybody. I am Mirna Santiago, and I am the founder and CEO of Girls Rule the Law, where we teach young ladies to show up, speak up, and woman up. At Girls Rule the Law, we have one mission and one mission only, and that is that we introduce middle and high school girls to the law. We do that in many different ways. We hold youth conferences. Our youth conferences are all-day events. It starts with a networking breakfast. It goes into an etiquette workshop where we teach the girls about formal table settings, modulating their voices at interviews and in jobs, those all important soft skills, looking people in the eye, and elevator pitches. Then we go into our panels of women judges, lawyers, and legislators, because that's what the law is, right? It's all those fields. And then we go from there to networking lunch so that they can practice what they've learned in the morning. After lunch, we have a keynote address. And in the past years, we have been very fortunate to attract many luminaries, such as Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, Assembly members LaToya Joyner, Tremaine Wright, and Latrice Walker, New York City Council member Alika Ampry Samuels, Queens DA candidate Betty Lugo, Bar President Sharon Gersman, and so many more. The day ends with a speed mentoring session where the girls get to rotate to different women lawyers, legislators, and judges for about 15 minutes at a time. We also hold law days at local schools, where we bring the youth conference to those schools who can't come to us. At the law days, we have lawyers from many different persuasions and practices meet with the kids and tell them what they do and how they've gotten into their areas of the law. We also have The Law Suits You. The Law Suits You is our program that provides professional wear to young ladies who may not have access to such clothing for interviews, internships, competitions like mock trial and debate. And speaking of mock trial and debate, we also do that. We bring that to the schools. And we have our volunteers who teach young ladies and all kids who want to join. We don't discriminate at Girls Rule about the mock trial, about the debate, and a competition at the end. And this year, we have actually started bringing targeted legal lessons to high schools in particular, where we have taught kids about labor and employment law, what is discrimination, what is microaggressions, that sort of thing. As well as now we're going to be teaching, we have volunteers who are going to be teaching entertainment law. For more information about what we do at Girls Rule the Law, please go to our website, www.girlsrulethelaw.org. This is our third in our Strength Has No Gender series, Leadership Lessons for Girls and Women. Today, we learn about creating your personal board of directors. Now, we have all heard about allies and mentors and maybe even sponsors, but have you also heard about champions and cheerleaders as well as constructive critics? All of those go into that group of people who form your support system. We call them your personal board of directors. Today, we have three great women who are going to be speaking about their personal board of directors and how they created their support system. First up is Alejandra Castillo, who is the former CEO of YWCA USA. And the YWCA USA serves 2.3 million girls and women around the country with a network of over 200 associations. The YWCA plays a dual role as both a social services provider and an advocate for reform and justice. Alejandra Castillo has over 2 decades of professional experience in Washington, D.C., having served in senior leadership in 2 presidential administrations. Given her policy, legal, and business expertise, she has also worked in various public, private, and nonprofit settings. In 2014, Alejandra was appointed by the Obama administration to serve as the National Director of the Minority Business Development Agency, becoming the first Latinx woman to lead that agency. In that role, she helped secure financing and capital in excess of $19 billion and created or retained over 33,000 jobs. Alejandra holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree from the State University of New York at Stony Brook in Economics and Political Science, a Master of Arts degree in Public Policy from the Lyndon Baines Johnson School of Public Affairs, University at Texas at Austin, and a Juris Doctorate from American University. That's a law degree. She's an active member of various civic and professional organizations, and she currently serves on many different boards. Victoria Espinel is our second speaker on this panel, and she is the president and CEO of BSA, the Software Alliance. Victoria is a respected authority on the intersection of technology, innovation, global markets, and public policy. She leads strategic efforts at BSA, the Software Alliance, that help shape technology landscape in more than 30 countries. Espinel also serves as the president of software.org, the BSA Foundation. Software.org is a nonprofit, independent, nonpartisan international research organization that helps policymakers and the broader public to understand the impact that software has on our lives, our economy, and our society. Now, Victoria has also been in public service for several decades for both Republican and Democratic administrations. She served as President Barack Obama's advisor on intellectual property, and before that, as the first ever chief US trade negotiator for intellectual property and innovation. She was also a professor of international trade and intellectual property at the George Mason School of Law. She was also appointed by President Obama to lead the principal advisory group for the US government on international trade. She's a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on Agile Governance and a former chair of the Digital Economy and Society. She holds her LLM, which is a master's in laws from London School of Economics, JD from Georgetown Law School, and a BS in Foreign Service from Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. Last, but definitely not least on this panel of extremely distinguished women is Jennifer Thibodaux. Jennifer is currently the senior legal editor at Thomson Reuters Practical Law. She is also the founder and principal of JMT Speaks. At Thomson Reuters, Jennifer drafts and creates New Jersey litigation content and international investigation resources. She is the co-chair of the Women at Thomson Reuters New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Programming Committee. Prior to joining Thomson Reuters, Jennifer was a director at Gibbons PC in Newark, New Jersey. During her 11 years of private practice, she focused on class action defense, e-discovery management, and counseling, and conducted internal investigations. Through her JMT Speaks platform, Jennifer is a professional speaker, writer, and a self-described storyteller. She draws on her experience to help other professionals become their best authentic selves and expert communicators. So if you want to speak more to Jennifer about what she does at JMT Speaks, you can reach her at www.jmtspeaks.com. Thank you so much and welcome, ladies. So we're going to jump right into it since we are a little behind schedule, and I want to be mindful of your time, and also just, I know you have so much to say, so I am going to just hop into the first question. So I've read off a few things off your bios because, you know, you guys are so distinguished that I would be here the whole day trying to read them all. So I want to give you the opportunity, you know, to spend a few minutes telling our attendees something about yourself that perhaps I didn't cover in the bio. So we talk to the girls a lot about elevator speeches, right? And how if you ran into Oprah in an elevator or Michelle Obama in an elevator and you wanted them to remember you, what would you tell them in that 1 minute or less? So Alejandra, let's start with you.
So I'm going to start by saying I'm a bridge. I'm a first generation American, so I'm the bridge between two cultures, two languages, two economic systems, two political systems. My parents came from the Dominican Republic. And for me, being that bridge is critical because I connect, right? I connect languages, culture, but I also connect people. And I think that that is what my strength is, and one of the things that distinguishes me. But I'm also the proud mom / aunt of two incredible girls that I've raised, and that makes me whole. So I'm just very glad to be here. Thank you, Mirna.
Thank you, Alejandra. Victoria, same question to you.
Wow, Alejandra, that was tremendous. So hi, I'm Victoria Espinel. I am the CEO of a global nonprofit that works on technology, law, and regulation. So we help shape the laws that have an impact on our society and our economy across the world. I'm a former chief trade negotiator for the United States, and I was an advisor to President Obama. Professionally, I like creating new things, ideas, organizations, strategies. I like trying something for the first time and then putting it on a path to success.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Jennifer, same thing to you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Thibodaux, and I'm an attorney and an entrepreneur. As an attorney, I am an editor at a global legal publishing house where I create resources to help other attorneys work smarter and faster. As an entrepreneur, I'm a professional writer and speaker where I use the power of storytelling to help others learn how to lead their best authentic lives. And I am blessed to love what I do.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So is there anything, I think we had briefly talked about what are some of the fun things that you do when you're not working. So we've heard a lot about what you've done. So Alejandra, I'm going to start with you. Like, tell me something that's not work related at all that people would not know about you, but maybe your family.
A couple of things. I'm a walker, and I did a pilgrimage, which is called the Way of St. James, in Spanish, El Camino, where you walk for 400 miles across France and Spain. And to me, walking is therapeutic. It's the way to connect with nature. The other thing is I'm a closet flamenco dancer.
Oh,
So
wow.
for me, I love my castanets. I love my skirts and my mantilla. It's what I do when no one's watching, but it gives me joy because we all need a little bit of art in our life. And I think we're all a bit of a thespian, right? We all have a little bit of drama in ourselves, and it's important because it feeds your soul. So whatever that is for this audience, if you like to write poetry, if you like to paint graffiti, go for it, because we will always need that balance in our life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alejandra. Victoria, what about you? Something fun.
That's great. My husband and 13-year-old, by the way, are walking the Camino. They're doing it a week, 8 years in a row to take it middle school. So they'll finish when he graduates from high school. So it's been such a great experience. Mirna, I would say the thing that people often don't know about me is that my husband and I also own a restaurant and cocktail bar in New Orleans in the French Quarter. A big booster of Louisiana and New Orleans in general. It's an amazingly resilient community there. And anyone who's listening to this, if you're in New Orleans, come visit us at Jewel of the South.
What, Jewel of the South?
Jewel of the South.
I will definitely be there.
And let me know if you're coming.
Okay, will do. Thank you. What about you, Jennifer?
I have to start by responding to Victoria because my husband is from New Orleans. There's my Thibodaux last name.
I was wondering about that.
Yes. So I definitely will be in touch with you. We have not been able to get down there for obvious reasons, but I love New Orleans and would love to hear all about your restaurant and bar. So something fun about me, speaking of my husband, I had to cast a lifeline to him because I was going to say something boring, like I am a voracious reader, like I can read several books a week. That's not fun. He laughed immediately when I asked him and said, how about the fact that you love music? When I get in your car, it is like a teenager just drove your car because there is pop music blaring at all decibels. Or when I come in the basement and you're on the treadmill, I can hear, the 90s hip hop coming out of your headphones. Like you love to move, you love music. And he thinks, and maybe people would be surprised to know that about me. They wouldn't see me in that way. So that is a fun fact.
I love that. I love that. We'll have to talk about music sometime. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
So that was just wonderful. So Alejandra, I'm going to pivot to you. You have done so much in your career, from being the CEO of YWCA. I mean, that was just sort of the tip of the iceberg, and that was already huge, right? So you were the first Latina to serve as a national director of the Minority Business Development Agency under President Obama. This leadership lesson is about creating your personal board of directors. Now, for people who out there who may not know what we mean by a personal board of directors, we're talking about allies, champions, sponsors, even critics, people who are within your circle who help you get to the next level, right? So who do you think, what's the most important role in your board of directors?
So I think it all depends on your personality. And I'm going to be very honest. I'm a New Yorker. So I need a board of directors that's going to call me out. Because the last thing I want is a board of director that's kind of, always telling you how wonderful, how great. Those are your friends and your family, at least some of them. But when you talk about board of directors, you want people who are going to help you see what you can't see, who are going to help you call you out when maybe your ego has gotten a little big, when maybe your arrogance has gotten out of control. People who are going to help you become a better person, not necessarily a better professional. There are lots of ways to get that. You can get a coach and all of that, but to be a better person, to call you out when you are not living in alignment with your values. That's what I think and I need as my board of directors, because, again, as a New Yorker, I can hustle, I can find opportunities, but I need people around me who are going to keep me straight, who are going to also remind me that at the end of the day, life is about moving the needle, making sure that you're contributing in a special way. So I gravitate to those individuals that are a little harsher with me because I need it and I yearn it.
So that would be your constructive critic, right? That would be.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't need a destructive critic. I need a constructive critic, and that is the operative term, constructive. Somebody who's not tearing you down, but really saying, hey, last time I saw you, you did this and this. I've seen you I've seen you in a better situation, be a better you. And people who can do that in a constructive way, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that I have some of my sixth graders that I do debate with online today. So for their sake, most of us older ladies know exactly what an Allies champion sponsor is, but for them, I'm going to break it down a little bit more before I ask the same question to Victoria, who's the most important person on your board. An ally is someone who works with you and can amplify your voice. Sometimes, for women in particular, you're sitting at a meeting, you have a suggestion and someone will talk right over you, and then 5 minutes later a man will make the same suggestion and everybody would say, oh wow, what a great idea that was, right? Your ally would actually stop and say, wait, Mirna just said that like 5 minutes ago. That's an ally. Your champions are those people who speak up and defend you. They're your cheerleaders, right? They're the ones who are going to walk into the meeting when you're not there and talk about what a great job you did on something else so that you can get those high profile projects. And then your sponsor is the person who's going to use their own privilege to move the needle for you. So for me, I've been very fortunate in my life, right, that I have had sponsors. I've had people who have decided that, you know what, I'm going to stick my neck out for her so that she can move somewhere that she would not normally go to, but I'm already here, right? So that's sort of what my definition of what the sponsors, the champions and allies are. So Victoria, when we're talking about the board of directors, who is the most important person in your board?
So I would say two things. And one, and I'm not sure what category this falls into, but I think having a person or hopefully multiple people on your board of directors that you feel like you can learn from is really, really important. Maybe that's a type of supporter, but so looking for someone who has skills or qualities that you don't have that you think would be useful, I think is a really important. I think it's important to have a place on the board of directors. I'll sort of echo what Alejandra said. I think people often don't like to criticize, and it's kind of easy to tell someone like, oh, you did a great job. If you can find someone who cares about you and cares enough that they're willing to tell you how to be better, that is really hard to find, I think, and really, really valuable. If you find that person, hold on to that person. But I would also encourage you to ask for it. Ask people like, how could I do better? And if they say like, you were great, be like, that's so wonderful to hear, but how could I be better? I think you need to ask for it in order to get that feedback. And I think it can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Jennifer, same question to you. Who is the most important person on your board of directors?
Without a doubt, I would say presently in my life, my constructive critic, which is a friend of mine, and to borrow a phrase that Alejandra used, who will call me out, really, who will keep me honest and make sure that I am always working in line with my moral compass and I'm not letting fear control me. I'll just add quickly as well that at different points in my career, I have definitely looked to the champion to be the most important person on my board of directors. When I was going to be elevated to partner at my firm, I really, really relied on my champion to help me out in many ways. So at that point, that was the most important person. So it's changed a bit as I've evolved as well in my career. And I want to drive that point home as well. It doesn't always have to be one person all the time. Now in my career, particularly as an entrepreneur, I need that constructive critic to keep me honest, to call me out, and again, not let me hold myself back in fear.
Well, going back to what a lot of you ladies have said, it looks like the person who's going to be the most important on your board really changes at what point you are in your life, right? So I remember one time in my life, maybe 20 years ago, I was going through a really hard time, just wrapping my brain around how the world could be. And I'm always very direct, so I'll be direct here. And sorry if the language is going to offend some people, but I was a young lawyer. I was walking on Madison Avenue, and this white woman came up to me and called me a nigger. And it really shook me to my core, right? I went to my office and I cried and I cried and I cried because I was just like, oh my God, this is Madison Avenue. This is New York City. Why is this happening? A month later, I went and applied for an apartment in a beautiful building in the city. And I had just seen it that morning. And I went to apply and I was told that the apartment was gone, right? But something didn't feel right with me. Like my bells were going off. And I went back to my office. I called my best friend, who is a white passing Argentinian Jewish woman, right? And I told her, I said, Mindy, can you do me a favor? Can you go and find out about this apartment for me? Because they told me it was taken. So she went right after work, knocked on the office door, and she asked them, she was like, oh, I just saw this apartment this morning. I'm really excited. Can I please see it? It's probably gone, right? Because, these apartments go so quickly. And they were like, oh, no one has shown up to see the apartment. And they were like, it's totally available. Here's the application. And I started to get really down on myself and in life. And I remember reading a book around that time where it said, ask like the 6 most important people in your life. They didn't call it board of directors. They were like, ask the 6 most important people in your life and then just choose one at random every 6 months to tell you what's great about you, what you do really well. And also, what do you wish I would change about myself, right? So I went to one of my other best friends, a man, and I asked him, I said, Miles, I read this book. It's really impactful to me. What do you like about me? And he says, I love that you are so strong-willed, you're ambitious, you're a person of your word. You say you're going to do something, you get it done. I said, what do you wish I would change about myself? And he says, you've gotten really angry and negative lately, right? And of course, I got angry and negative with him when he said it. And I just said, oh, call me the angry Black woman, blah, blah, blah. But he was right. I had gotten into this rut in my life where I was, and that was a turning point for me. And I do that. I still do that. I started thinking about this whole board of directors, and I would go to people and I would say, what do you like? What do I do well? And what is it that I can change? So when we talk about the constructive critics, Alejandra, I'll go round robin again with you. Has there been a point in your life where you felt like, okay, it was really the constructive critic that got you moving into the next step?
Yeah, I want to respond to the question twofold. One is, look, there are moments in our lives when we will get angry. And the question for all of us to decide is, are we going to hold on to anger, or are we going to process anger so that we can get to the other side and do magical things? And very quickly, and I share this with people. My father committed suicide when I was 13, and I was angry. And I held on to anger because it fueled my determination, my will. I was like, nobody's going to ever put me down. And even though there were positives about that, I knew that that was not the way. So it took me a long time. And because we're speaking to young girls, it's important to recognize when we feel angry, what does anger do to you? And how can we actually move to a more positive platform? Then to your question, Mirna, yes, there have been moments when I've been called out because I've been blessed. I worked at the White House when I was 26, and it messed my head up. I thought I was the president. It took me some humbling, and that's what life does. Life will humble you, not to bring you down, not to weaken you, not to make you small, but to go back to what I said before, and I think Jennifer said it too, to align you with what do you truly believe in, to align you with your moral compass, to make you a better person. So the journey of life goes up and down and all around. And the question for us is, how do we use every stage of our lives to be a better person?
Yeah, thank you, Alejandra. Victoria, what about you?
So I think there's been lots of points in my life where having a constructive critic has been really helpful. I would say probably, there have been a number of times in my life where I've changed careers. I've often done things that could be viewed as kind of a downgrade from the job that I had before, or stepping back in my career progression to try something new. And at those moments, I think having the cheerleader, has been what I needed at that moment. But when you then start that new opportunity and you're proving yourself, I think that's often the time when having the constructive critic that you can say, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is how I'm doing it. And having someone, how could I do it better? What am I missing? I think those moments at the beginning, when you're creating something new or when you're starting a new opportunity, that is when you need those constructive critics. I guess a way to be more concise about that is maybe when you're leaving something and you're looking for your next thing, that's when you want your supporters and your allies. And then when you found it and you're starting, that's when you really need your constructive critic.
Absolutely. And Jennifer, I'm just going to add a little layer to that before I let you answer the same question. Like, this program was actually going to be called Get Yourself an Elsa, right? And the reason it was going to be called Get Yourself an Elsa is because my big sister, she's 5 years older than me. Her name is Elsa. And my constructive critic at Girls Rule, Juana, was like, you can't make it be called Get Yourself an Elsa because everybody's going to be singing Let It Go on your program. So I listened to her. But Elsa is my cheerleader, right? Like, if I tell Elsa right now, you know what, Elsa, I want to be the next Beyonce. Her response would be, absolutely, you should have been Beyonce before Beyonce was Beyonce, right? So, but you can't always have a cheerleader. It's not always practical. Sometimes you need somebody who's going to lead you down the path and say, girl, you can't sing. You're no Beyonce, right? So asking you the same question, Jennifer, at what have you had a point in your life where you have just said, what I really need is someone who's going to constructively tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can get to the next place?
Definitely, I have, and I alluded to this earlier.
I think Jennifer got frozen. All right, so I will move on and then allow Jennifer to answer when she comes back to us. Alejandra.
Under his wing, and he had said, you know what, like, you have always been vocal about wanting to take depositions, go to court and argue motions, and you're good at it, but I can sense that you're a little hesitant to take the next steps. So guess what? You're going to take an expert deposition, which is basically like a really, really hard deposition to take, where we have these really, really difficult, sorry, I think my video is off and it might be on now. I don't know what happens. We have these really difficult motions coming up and we're probably going to lose, and they're going to be high profile in the legal news. You're going to argue them because you're holding yourself back. And I want you to be able to say, when you put in your partnership application, when you sit down for your partnership interview, that you did these things. So he called me out again on how I was holding myself out and used his own influence as a sponsor, as a cheerleader, to position me to do those things rather than other attorneys. And that was integral for me in my development and my advancement.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now, Victoria, I have told you before that I'm just absolutely obsessed with your career trajectory, because as lawyers, we always say that we go into law school because we hate math and science. And here you are, you're a lawyer and you're also in tech. So can you tell us a little bit about how that happened and, how is it that you ended up where you ended up?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So my whole career in some ways stems from a unpaid internship that I did at the Department of Commerce at an office inside the Department of Commerce called the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. And I got a internship in the Office of Chief Counsel inside of that. But it was sort of the beginning of the internet. And the issue that I worked on that summer as a first year summer in law school was basically how it was going to impact the cable entertainment industry. But it was really clear that it wasn't just going to have an impact on cable TV, that it was going to change everything. It was going to change our economy, it was going to change how we live our lives. And I thought, and therefore, in my opinion, that laws and regulations that shape that were going to be really important. And so I thought this is going to be fascinating to be part of this conversation about how laws and regulations need to be created in order to harness the benefits of this amazing technological change that's coming. And I have had different, divergences on my career path from time to time, but that has really been at the core of underneath that is working on legal policy issues that are going to have a big impact on how we live our lives, and that impact is coming from technological change. But it really all comes back to this internship at the Department of Commerce that frankly, I wouldn't say I lucked into it. I was doing another internship. I was really unhappy and bored at what I was doing. I got out a directory of federal agencies and literally started cold calling down numbers. And I must have called 100 agencies who were uninterested. And on like the 100th and first call, someone picked up at the phone and they said, "You're an unpaid, a first year law student looking to work. Come in and spend the summer with us." It was incredibly lucky that lawyer happened to be walking by and picked up the phone and said yes. And my whole career came from that. Wow. But if I'd given up on call number 50 or call number 75 or call number 98, I wouldn't have had that opportunity.
Yep. So you hear that, young ladies? It's all about perseverance, right? You just have to keep calling, keep going until you get where it is that you want to go. Now, Jennifer, your career path is also different. So I want to delve a little bit into that. You're a lawyer, you worked outside of the traditional lawyer role for a little bit. So you call yourself a storyteller, which I just find wonderful. So what made you take that path? What, because you talked about being a partner. So what made you say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore and take another path?
Sure. So Mirna, I don't know if you and I have really discussed how it was high school mock trial that really set me off on my career trajectory. Doing mock trial in high school, starting when I was 14, solidified me wanting to become a lawyer. I always loved to read. I loved to write. I had a column in the high school newspaper, and the world seemed to come together when I did mock trial. I think even more importantly for me at that time, I was very shy. I was very unsure of myself. And when I was cast in the role, in quotes, of playing an attorney, I felt this fire, this spark in my belly for the first time when I stood up and presented my argument to a fake jury at the county courthouse after hours. It gave me a confidence that I had never felt before. So I said, that's it. I'm going to be a lawyer. And even at that age, I was type A and said, well, if I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a partner at a law firm. And I just had that goal for 20 years, really, the better part of it, because I was 34 when I made partner at my firm, the youngest at the time. Now, my career took the trajectory that it did because it wasn't until, honestly, after I became partner, I accomplished that goal, the dust settled, and I realized I had singularly focused on this one goal without really stopping to think if it was a fit for me. Did I really love it? And I had to look back at who I was and what I enjoyed when I was a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girl. And it was reading and writing. And I had never stopped to think that I can use my law degree in different ways. So when the opportunity came up for me to do something totally different in legal publishing, I was hesitant, but excited at the same time. And I grabbed it. And in terms of being a storyteller, I realized that as much as I love writing and speaking, I wanted to do it in a different way than my day job. And I do have stories to share, things I've learned over the years, things I'm still learning now that resonate with lawyers, non-lawyers, women, men, regardless of gender identity. So I've become an entrepreneur over the past year and launched my own business. And I never in a million years would have thought that this would be my career and my life. But by being genuine, this is where I've ended up.
Amazing. Thank you so much. When we're talking about sponsors, we've spoken a lot about constructive critics, which I really didn't want to, go down that path, but it looks like, like that's what's been most helpful to you ladies. But Alejandra and Victoria, you have had a very powerful sponsor, right? In President Barack Obama, where you've both worked in his administration. So as we mentioned, Alejandra served as National Director of the Minority Business Development Agency. And Victoria, you served in both Republican and Democratic administrations, but you did serve as President Obama's advisor on intellectual property. So how did you find such a powerful ally, sponsor, champion like President Obama? So Alejandra, let's start with you.
So I wish I could say President Obama has been my sponsor, but that would not be true, right? I had the privilege to serve in his administration. The sponsors came from folks around him. The sponsors came from people who I had worked with before, who could attest to my hardworking skill, ethics and discipline and my policy background. And those sponsors came in the form of advisors to the president who are doing personnel decisions. And those sponsors also came in the form both publicly and non-public, and behind the scenes. And the ones that are behind the scenes are truly the ones that are most powerful. People who know you, they're not bragging that they're going to get you a job or anything, but they're just saying, look, I know her. They can attest and validate. I know her character. I know her skills. And that's how you start to move through, as Victoria knows, that's how you start moving through the different echelons of politics, because you always need those sponsors. And the reason you need those sponsors is because it's a competitive process. So somebody may say, well, she's good, but she's not that good. And your sponsors are going to say, oh, no, I know her. I will put my, my word on her. And that's when the real value of having those strong sponsors, especially when you're not in the room.
Exactly. What about you, Victoria?
So I could talk a little bit about how my trajectory to the job I had at the White House, and I'm happy to, but I'll do this instead, and then I can come back to that, Mirna, if you want. We'll talk a little bit about how to find sponsors and allies. And so here are a few things that I would suggest. One, I personally would look for people, as I said before, that have either an experience or a quality that you don't have that you think would be helpful. So here's an example. When I was a trade negotiator, actually, one of the heads of the chief trade negotiator for all the United States, was really, really good at telling people no in a way that made them like him. And I am not good at that. And I'm still not good at that. But I remember watching that and being like, that is an amazing skill. And that is one I would like to try to get a little bit better at. And we have a very close relationship. But I think part of it was me sort of identifying, like, this is a person who knows how to do something really well that I don't, and I want to learn from that person. So I would look for that. I would then ask for help, and I would be direct, but particularly if you're asking for help for people that are busy. Be direct so they know what it is that you need, and be prepared. Have an ask, and let them know clearly what it is they can do to help you. And they may say yes, they may say no, but they're not going to help you probably unless you ask, and you ask directly. And then the third thing I would say is be looking for ways to help others. And you may feel like you don't have something to offer, but I would always be probing on that and looking for ways that you can help others and build those relationships that will help you as sponsors and allies. Is also just sort of, the right good thing to do. So I would look for qualities in people that you want to learn from. I would ask for help when you need it in a direct, respectful, and prepared way. And I would look for ways to help others.
So just going back to that, because I know, when we talk about networking, people always say, oh, you have to be prepared to touch somebody 7 times before you make that direct ask, right? Like they have to keep seeing you pop up on their screen, basically, in their email before you can say, can you help me with this? You're saying, no, don't waste my time trying to touch me 7 times. Just come out and tell me, this is what I need.
That is my experience. I have people sometimes reach out to me and I'm pretty sure they want something, but they won't tell me. And I will tell you at the end of that conversation, I'm like, I just spent 15 minutes talking to you and I don't know what it is that you want. And you, I think, are trying to be polite, but really I'm just sort of thinking like, can I help you or can I not? And if you would tell me, then I would be able to, maybe I'd be able to help you, maybe I wouldn't. So personally, that has been my experience personally. When people come to ask me for things, it's much better for them to be direct. So I know what it is and I can see if I can help them. And that has been, how I have approached others. I mean, again, you want to ask for something, you want to ask for help that is reasonable. You want to be prepared just to be able to make the case for like why it is that it would make sense for you to get this position or for them to be able to offer you this help. But then ask.
Alejandra, I saw you sort of shaking your head a little bit when Victoria was talking about, just make the ask. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I actually started reacting when you were like touched 7 times. Like this is not as formulaic. It's not a formula, right? The other thing is, a relationship. And we tend to underscore how important having an authentic relationship with somebody. And I think I do agree with Victoria as well, because if you beat around the bush, you're wasting my time and you're wasting your time. So being able to establish a relationship, like, do I know you from out of the blue, or have I met you? Those are 2 different lines to ask, but it's important to say what you need. Absolutely. I just want to caution folks that there is a place for relationships so that we can establish that friendship, that get to know you, that authenticity. It may happen over 1 call, or it may happen over 3 months or 3 years. But let's also bring back the focus to having healthy relationships with people who you want to be your mentors or sponsors. That was my reaction.
Okay.
No, I think that's true. And if I could just build on that, I think you need to have that relationship first. I just don't know that 7 touches. It could be like one amazing 2-hour conversation, or it could be you worked with someone for 2 years and you had, 1,000 interactions with them. So I do think having a relationship is important. And I think, and have it, and that's why I suggest things like, look for things that you can learn from them. If you're learning from them, then you're interacting with them in an authentic way because you're learning from them, or look for ways to help people. But I think you do need to establish relationships. You can still make cold call asks. And I have people reach out to me all the time that don't know me just to see if I'll help. But certainly if you have a relationship, that means the person's going to be in a much better position, obviously, to recommend you or to give you constructive criticism because they know you.
Thank you. Well, I always ask this one question, and I want to make sure that we have time to answer it. And Jennifer, we haven't heard from you in a bit, so I'm going to start with you on this one. So it's my time machine question, right? That knowing what you know today, if you could go back in time to the time you were 13, right? A lot of the young ladies that we work with are in middle and high school. So if you could go back to the time you were 13, doesn't have to be career, it could be personal, and give yourself some advice, what would it be?
So right before I answer that, Mirna, I just want to pick up on the prior conversation and say that I think it's about organic relationships. I think that was huge for me in my career. And I just want to offer quickly my perspective because I was in private practice for a long time. I had firm assigned mentors. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't because of relationships and personalities. The mentoring relationships that worked for me were the ones that I developed organically with people I worked with, I worked for, and then asked and took ownership and said, will you be my mentor? And I stayed on top of it. So putting that aside, to answer your question, and I love this time machine question, I think it's the hardest one you've asked today. What comes to mind to me is to be confident. As I mentioned before, I was shy and reserved and felt awkward at 13 years old. And I think that's common And that really affected me so much. I didn't speak up as much as I should have in class or with my friends. I didn't take up the space that I should have. I didn't have the confidence that I needed. And I found that luckily in mock trial, but I wish I had found that from within, and confidence comes from inside. So that is what I would tell myself at 13 years old, looking back.
Thank you, Jennifer. Victoria, same question, time machine, 13 years old.
So, Jennifer, when I was 13, I was also very shy. I felt very much like an outsider. I had very few friends. I had curly hair that I did not like, and made me, I think, added to the feeling of being an outsider, or at least in my mind it did. So if I could go back and talk to my 13-year-old self, I would tell myself not to worry about it, that I would eventually make more friends, that I would become less shy, that I'd wear my curly hair and be happy with it most days. So that's what I would tell myself. I really felt like an outsider when I was 13, which I think is very, very common. And I would tell myself that's not going to last forever.
Thank you. Alejandra.
You know what, we all felt awkward at 13. And as I shared before, I was going through my own loss of my dad and everything. But I got a lot of pressure because I was very nerdy and I love to read like Jennifer, and I would stay in my room, and we have a society that wants everybody to be an extrovert. So I would say, look, give yourself some time. 13 is like a butterfly. It's like you're in your cocoon. There's a lot of things that feel uncomfortable, but just trust that at 13 is when you have to fall in love with learning. It's when you have to fall in love with curiosity. It's when you have to fall in love with being patient. And it's hard because that's an awkward stage, but it's going to be all right. So if I could go back in time, I would say, let life unfold and you're going to be okay. But do the things that at your age you should be doing, which is falling in love with learning and curiosity and exploration.
So the next step in that, and Alejandra, since you're already there, we'll just continue with you. Would that advice change at 18 or 21 or 25 or at all of those ages?
So the only thing that for me is constant is staying curious, the intellectual curiosity, being in wonder, wanting to know more about. That's consistent whether you're 13, 25, or 51 as I am. That is constant. I think that is the joy of life, to be able to yearn for more knowledge. But as you age, as you go through time, what you're worried about at 13 is not what you may be worried about at 25. You have to adjust. But at the same time, understanding that the beauty of growing and being thankful and is really having gratitude. We can complain about what we don't have and spend all day long about what we don't have, but what do you have? What do you have? Do you have a family that loves you? Do you have a supportive, and if you don't, seek it. So I think that's where this phrase of "it takes a village to raise a child," you need a village of your own. You need your board of directors, to go back to the theme of this webinar, because that's how it's going to evolve, and that's how people are going to come in and out of your life, because they have something to contribute to you.
Yeah. Victoria?
So I would say when I was 18, 20, 25, I felt like every decision I made had to be the right decision. I felt like everything was, going to set me on this irrevocable career path. And so every class, every internship, everything had to be the right decision. And I would so love to be able to go back and tell myself that is not true, that your career is going to continue to change, that you can make decisions, you can take jobs, you can leave them, you can go down one career path, you can change your mind, decide you're not like that. I've done that several times. And I wish I could go back and tell myself, like, you can keep changing your career over and over and trying new things. Every decision is not, the final decision or the last decision, quite the opposite, actually.
Mm-hmm. True. Jennifer?
I'm nodding at what Victoria is saying because it really resonates. I said I had this 20-year goal of becoming a partner at a law firm, and I wish I had thought broader than that. And Victoria might also be might also resonate with you that my big hair, don't care attitude that I didn't develop honestly until my probably later 20s is one I wish I had adopted earlier, meaning that both literally and figuratively, I used to spend so much time worrying about, can I go work at a major law firm with this, right? This bothered me. What do I do? Nobody looks like this. Should have said then figuratively, big hair, don't care. This is me, take it or leave it. To tack on to that as well, advice that I would give myself at 25 is to really make time for myself as well. As a young lawyer, there was a lot of pressure, both stated and unstated, to work, bill hours, when you start at a law firm. And for me, that was age 25. It's very easy for me to lose myself in that. And it affected, my mental health, my physical health, my relationship with others, because I was working all the time and I needed to have, see the forest for the trees, and that there's more to life than work, and it's okay to take a break.
Yeah. So that's an excellent segue, actually, Jennifer, when you're talking about taking care of yourself, right? So, and I hate to do it to women because only women get asked this question, but I think it really is important, especially when things change towards your life, in your life, whether you're trying to make time for yourself, whether you're trying to make time for kids, maybe your husband. For me now, I'm trying to make time for caregiving. My parents are getting older. I have my elderly mother-in-law that lives with us. I have a 17-year-old boy who needs a lot of my time and attention. So it just, how do you balance trying to take care of yourself and everybody else around you, and also try to nurture your career? So Alejandra, let's start with you.
So I'll tell you that, I just left YWCA, and people ask me, well, why did you leave? I left because after doing what I think is an incredible job, raising over $280 million, surviving the last presidency and everything that was happening, I needed a break. I needed to replenish. Now, I am blessed. I have that opportunity. But I'll tell you, in every stage of my career, I've always taken a break because I need it. And that's where, again, I know this is not a conversation about financial literacy, but that's how we also need to talk about, how do women take care of themselves financially? Yes. And hopefully you'll do a panel on that at some point. But to be able to have enough savings so that we can take a minute to pause is a luxury not all women have. And I want to call that out. Not all women have, but I know that I need it for my own mental health. And as we go through life, just like when we go through puberty and the hormones are going through, as we age, that comes into play too. But for me, taking care of myself is doing the things I love, whether it's watching a flamenco dancer or going for a long walk or, dancing some salsa, merengue, bachata, it's all about finding that joy. Because sometimes people think, oh, I have to go to a spa and I have to go on vacation. Taking care of yourself can be 5 minutes, but you have to be disciplined enough to put yourself first. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. And Alejandra, I am going to take that as you volunteering to be on the panel on financial literacy. So I will reach back out to you. And I so just, what you just said about walking away sometimes and taking that time. I was a senior deputy counsel at a $1 billion nonprofit for 3+ years, and it was just sucking the life out of me. And one day I just woke up and I told my husband, I said, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I went in and I gave notice. It was just, and I spent a year, and again, not everybody can do that, but I spent a year growing Girls Rule the Law, which is where my passion is, right? It's creating this pipeline into the profession because we need it. So it's very important to do that. Victoria, what about you?
Mirna, I love that you took your time off to start a whole new organization. So I think this is really hard. I think, frankly, when I'm working, I just try to compartmentalize, not feel guilty about things at home. And when I'm at home, I try not to think about work. I try to get home at 7. the kids go to bed at 8:30. So from 7 to 8:30, I put my phone somewhere where I can't see it. Someone needs to call me in an emergency, they can, but at 7 to 8:30 is, being with my little guys, and I read to them almost every night. If I'm home, we read together, and that is it's just been a great time for us to be together.
What about you, Jennifer?
I'm going to echo what Alejandra said. It's really about taking care of myself first. And that requires me just getting up really early, to be honest, to have time to myself. I have a 4-year-old son. I'm a full-time lawyer. I have my own business. I'm married and probably a terrible partner to my husband because I'm doing a million things. But the non-negotiable for me is I get up at 5:15 because that is my time. I exercise, I'm pumping my music. I'm getting hyped up for the day. I do ballet bar, and I have to do that every day, including Saturdays and Sundays, to keep myself sane. Because without that, I don't have balance. And some days are better balanced than others. It just is what it is. Some days I'm a great lawyer. It could have been a better mom. Some days I'm a great mom, but you know what? Maybe I didn't get a full day's work in. And it kind of is what it is, and it all shakes out, and that's okay.
And I think it depends too on where you are in your life. I remember going to a CLE years and years and years ago, and there was a partner at a very prominent law firm, and somebody asked her, how do you balance everything? And she said, I don't. And I was like, wow, that was just so refreshingly honest. She says, I don't. She's like, right now, my purpose is, in my mind, is to be the best partner I can possibly be. And she says, that means that I pay somebody else to mop my floors at home. So,
and if I can, I'd like to also, the reason that was such a powerful statement of sometimes I don't balance it is because you get to a point where you really don't care what others say.
Yeah.
That's where your board of directors come in again, and the people who know you and are closest to you. So it matters to me what my mother thinks, but it may not matter to me what my friends on Instagram think.
Yeah.
And nowadays we have to learn how to make that distinction.
Exactly.
Whose opinion matters here? And the first opinion that matters is your own.
Exactly. So we have a few minutes left, and there are some great questions in the queue. So I just want to make sure we get to them before we wrap up. So I'll pick the first one, and it's asking about how do the panelists handle predatory men in business? Unfortunately, there are predatory men. So let's start, Jennifer, with you, and then we'll go to Victoria and Alejandra.
So I'm going to be very honest here and say that I've been very, very blessed in my career that the experience that I have had with men who are senior to me has on a whole been positive. I've definitely been the subject of, oh, you're the only woman in the room. Can you go make photocopies for this meeting? And oh, you're the only woman, so you're gonna get like the not so great assignment because it's more secretarial than lawyer like. But I haven't had that experience. I have actually, I think, been lucky in that regard. So I want to be honest and say I can't speak to personal experience with predatory men in my career.
Victoria?
So, I've had a few unfortunate experiences. They were always clients. So they weren't someone that controlled my career in the way that like a partner would for a junior associate. And they were always situations where I could kind of remove myself from the situation, which is sort of unfair to have to do, right? But in those cases, that's how I handled it. I just kind of removed myself from the situation, made sure I was never alone with, that particular person. And it was never a situation happily for me where I felt like, in physical fear. It was more sort of, eye rolling. But I will say, like, I look back on, when the whole Me Too movement came, I looked back on that and I thought, I never said anything to the men involved. I never said anything to my superiors. And I kind of regretted it, that I just felt like, it felt like just sort of the way things were, and it wasn't worth it to say anything. And I think that was a big mistake, and I regret it.
Yeah, I can imagine. What about you, Alejandra?
It's interesting because I'm in between both Jennifer and Victoria because I've been blessed as well. However, I have had to pull the way I've led my life is I have made decisions to pull myself away from situations. Let me give you an example. You know, you go to a conference ends, people have, you know, the dinner, and then maybe they go to the bar. I don't go to the bar because it's my way of like avoiding. And it's unfortunate because I've had to change my life in order to avoid what unfortunately men continue to do. I've had situations where people, you know, a person will say, or a guy will say, obviously, oh, can I walk you to your room? We're staying, you know, everyone's staying at a hotel for a conference. And I've had to say, you know what, thank you. I know exactly where my room is. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult situations. But I'm hopeful that things are changing, because I think generationally, I'm from a generation where we just kind of suck it up, and it's like, no, why is the burden on me, right? Why is the burden on women? So I think that definitely calling it out, there's more of an environment where people are feeling much more, women in particular are finding their voices, and as a manager, there is no room in any organization that I lead for that type of behavior. So now that women are really rising to those leadership roles in as partners, as managers in federal government, and as business owners, we are also being the drivers of that culture change.
Yeah. Can I just jump in and say, I would also encourage all of you girls, trust your radar, trust your instincts. Something feels kind of weird, feels kind of off, trust that.
That's a beautiful.
Yeah, trust yourself. Oh, you're muted. So Victoria, there is a question specifically for you from another Victoria Bell, asking, how is it that you were able to survive in DC on an unpaid internship?
That's a great question. So my first answer to that is, you know, my father's Colombian. I don't know if this is really why, but long story short, I lived at home all through college and law school, because he was like, you know, we live in DC, you're going to school in DC. Why do you need to live on campus? You can live here at home, and be part of the family dinner making session. So, you know, before my law school property exam, the night before, I was grocery shopping and making dinner for the family, because like that was my night to make dinner. And there were many amazing things that came from that, including that was why I was able to do things like take an unpaid internship, because I was living at home with my family.
All right, thank you. All right, so we are going to wrap up. So as always, the very last question is, if every person on this call could just take away one thing from what you've said today, what would that be? So we're going to start with you, Jennifer.
I don't know that I have explicitly said this up until now, but it's really to speak up. We are all the stewards of our own careers. And if you want someone to be your mentor, you have to ask them. If you want to get certain experience in your career, I mentioned taking a deposition, arguing motions in court, ask. You have to speak up. I think that was a lesson. It was important for me to learn, because when I first started practicing, I was still in that student mentality where, you know, you hand in an assignment, you get an A, and then you get like more work, and you continue in that cycle. Didn't realize that, yes, I should hand in great work that was A quality, but also say, you know what, now I want to go watch the deposition that I helped prepare this outline for, or I am now ready to go and argue a simple motion. Can I do that? It's all about actually being your own advocate and being the steward of your own career in so many ways.
And I think women, more than men, tend to not want to toot their own horn. That was another question that we didn't really have time to answer, which was, how do you get these sponsors and mentors and allies? I think for sponsors tend to come more organically. Like I just joined a firm as a partner in December, and it was from working, you know, nonstop basically for the last 20 something years at the Bar Association, speaking engagements, doing stuff like this. And someone came to me and they said, we're looking for a partner in the insurance coverage practice in my firm. Would you want to join us? You know, and I think of that man, Dan Cohane, as my sponsor, as my champion, because, you know, it was something that was on my bucket list. and he made it happen for me, but I had to put in the work, and work, it's organic because of my relationship with him. So that's how you find sponsors. But when it comes to allies, and when it comes to people who are going to support you, if you want that extra voice to amplify what you're saying, like Jennifer's saying, you're going to have to reach out and say, I need your help, because people don't really know otherwise. So Victoria, same question to you. If one thing they can take away from everything you've said, what would it be?
Be ambitious, and don't feel like that's a bad thing. Know that it's a good thing. Be ambitious for yourself, be ambitious for your family, be ambitious for your career, be ambitious to be the best, to learn new things, to help others, whatever it is that you want, be ambitious and know that that's a good thing.
Thank you. Alejandra.
So I would say your board of directors, your sponsors, your constructive critics, they come in all size, shapes. Be open-minded. You never know who that, as you well pointed out, Mirna, you never know who's going to be that extraordinary, lifelong sponsor, mentor. So be open-minded. For me, I've had white men from the South being incredible advocates. I've had Black women. I mean, be open to wherever those voices can come from.
Thank you. I don't see any additional questions, and we are a few minutes over, but I just want to thank you all so much, Alejandra, Victoria, Jennifer, for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend this hour with us, just enlightening us and giving us your gems of wisdom. I appreciate it. For everybody who is on the call, if you want to know more about what we do at Girls Rule the Law, please go look at our website, www.girlsrulethelaw.org. You'll see everything that we do, and hopefully you can join us in future events. Thank you so much.
Mirna, thank you so much. This was really great.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.